if we're going to talk about stocks that have the best hedge against a recession, Procter & Gamble needs to be at the very top of that list, right? Technically, cash would be the best during a recession. It's always good to keep some cash. However, if you're holding a large percentage of cash and there's no real, recession or dip for a decade, you're going to get absolutely destroyed on inflation, right? They aim for 2 to 3% every year. It could be more. We've seen it be more over the last 5 years, certainly. I know this is a weird time, but still, inflation is going to absolutely destroy cash. So if we're talking about stocks that have the best recession hedge, Procter & Gamble is at the top of that, mainly because of what they do, right? They sell basic necessities of life, toothpaste, dish soap, diapers, right? You can't really cut that out. You can cut the gaming laptop, you can cut the cruises, you can cut the vacations, you can cut the new smartphone. You can't really cut that stuff. And that's not to say Procter & Gamble won't fall when everything's falling, right? We can see in 2020 it hit lows. When people start liquidating 401ks, normal people start selling, although that's probably the worst time you should sell, right? Unless you time it at the very bottom, which most people don't. But it's everything's still going to fall. But during the recession itself, and once the panic completely sell down is going to happen, Procter & Gamble, the underlying business is going to do fine during a recession, right? That's just what they are, what they do. Now, we can see over the last 5 years, 38% isn't necessarily ideal. It is beating inflation during that time period. So it's also an inflation hedge as well. We can see it also pays a decent dividend, 2.4%. It's not phenomenal, but it's also not nothing, right? And if we look here, this is what I'm really want to look at, right? So you can pick most of the peaks on here, and you're going to see a number of things happening. You're going to always beat inflation. Generally, you're going to be up as well. You can go here in 2007. You can go to the tippity top in 1999, right? You're actually basically doubling inflation throughout most. Now we're talking 20-year time frame, right? Over the last 5 years has actually been a pretty poor performance for Procter & Gamble, right? But it looks like if we're talking in the realm of decades, you should be able to outperform inflation, get that dividend yield, and this is a stock you can own that will be a decent hedge against a recession, like I said. So that's what I see underlying here. We can take a look at someone like the PE and forward PE, right? Forward PE of 23. So it is valued roughly at S&P 500 levels. And it does underperform S&P. It does. That is the reality. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's a terrible stock, right? There is room for this in your portfolio. Like I said, I like it as maybe a little bit of diversification, but mainly I like it as a hedge against recession and maybe something sitting in a dividend portfolio, right? It's getting you some yield and it's going to beat inflation over a time period. But this probably isn't one of your better dividend performers. It would be okay. Right? But like I said, where I see it as, okay, this is something that's going to be better than cash, right? Because it's going to get a higher return than cash, right? It's probably going to get a higher return than CDs when rates are lows. It's probably going to get a higher return than most bond. Maybe a 10-year would be different, but it's still cash. It's still available, right? The difference between like a bond and this is you can sell it whenever. You can access this cash. Now, if you're holding for a super long period of time, that's less of a factor, right? But that's where I personally like Procter & Gamble as. Now, there's certainly other scenarios where you can formulate it to be used, right? But that's personally how I like it. So anyways, so Schwab likes it. They think it's going to be the top 30% of stocks performing over the next year. Could very well be. They think it's actually fairly cheap then. I don't look at things in a 1 year time frame. I'm not that smart. I don't know where stocks are going to be. I look at the long-term outlook based on the history and where the value of the company is right now, the growth of it. And that's how I formulate whether to own a stock or not. So, but they like it. So that's cool. 2 stars, wide economic. That's probably true. They do have a lot of the huge brands we think of, right? So, whether it be Tide or I think they own Pampers, Old Spice. They just own all, I think they Oral-B, something. So, like, yeah, they have a lot of really known brand names, right? So that's where we're getting the wide from. I probably agree with that. 3 stars the mode is for the industry they're in, of course, right? If you're comparing their moats to something like ASML, it's not particularly close, but Void by Moderate ESG score, we can take a little bit of a peek at the dividends, what they're throwing down. Yeah, I'm not surprised you get consistent dividend growth. Although, like I said, if you're looking just for the dividends, you can find much better, I'm sure. Yeah, so I mean, we'll take a quick peek at what analysts have to say. Yeah, so most people are saying hold or underperform. It looks like, I don't get the exact number, but it looks like 12 are saying hold or underperform. The rest are saying buy or strong buy. Sure, analyst price targets are above. Like I said, you should know what you're getting from this stock, right? It's, like I said, it's basically, I like it as a hedge against a recession that you can hold long term, and it's going to outperform cash pretty dramatically. So that's I've said that numerous times, so I'm not going to reiterate. I'm just going to wrap up here. If you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate if you left a like, subscribe. If you enjoyed the content, I do all sorts of stocks on this channel, everything from tech to Procter & Gamble, right? So, but anyways, I appreciate all you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.